Welcome back, everybody, to another deep dive. Today, we're going to be looking at something that I've been really curious about for a while now, and that's the idea of using meditation to unlock financial wisdom.
Okay.
And we've got a whole bunch of sources here that explore how Buddhist philosophy kind of links these two worlds together.
Right.
The world of meditation and the world of personal finance. Two things that you wouldn't normally think go together.
Yeah.
So it's almost like we're setting off on this treasure hunt
Yeah.
to try to figure out if there are practical techniques that we can use that could actually rewire our brains for success.
Okay.
And maybe even attract abundance into our lives through things like gratitude. Honestly, though, it sounds a little bit too good to be true. So
Yeah.
I'm eager to get into it and see what we can find.
Yeah. This source we're looking at dives right into this idea, right? It challenges the way that we usually think about financial wisdom.
Okay.
Because it's not just about, spreadsheets and investment strategies and all that. It's about cultivating a deep sense of inner peace in our relationship with money.
That's really intriguing.
Yeah.
So it's less about chasing wealth and more about finding this kind of balance and contentment
Yeah.
with our finances. I'm curious to see how the source connects those ideas.
Well, in Buddhist teachings, there's this idea that our minds are like a still lake.
Okay.
When a lake is calm, the reflection is clear.
Right.
But when emotions like fear or desire, start to create ripples in that lake,
Yeah.
it distorts everything.
Okay.
And I think you can probably see how that applies to our financial decisions too.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Especially for me, those impulse purchases are a perfect example of when my lake gets totally whipped up into a frenzy.
Yeah.
Suddenly, I just need that new gadget, even if it means throwing my whole budget off track.
Right.
It's like my rational mind completely takes a backseat to that urge for instant gratification.
Yeah. And that's a great example of how, those emotional ripples can lead us to make decisions that aren't really in our best interests in the long run. And that's where this source suggests that meditation can actually make a difference.
Okay.
It's about learning to cultivate that stillness within ourselves so we can make clear, intentional decisions, even when things feel really chaotic.
So instead of being swept away by that urge to buy something or that fear of not having enough,
Exactly.
meditation helps us to sort of create a space
Yes.
where we can assess our choices more objectively.
Yes.
I see how that could be really powerful.
Right.
But honestly, it's hard to imagine actually achieving that kind of mental stillness.
Right. Well, this source actually gets into the science behind this a little bit.
Oh, okay.
Which I found really interesting
Yeah.
because meditation has actually been shown to have an impact on the prefrontal cortex, that part of
Yeah.
our brain that's responsible for decision making.
Right.
And it also affects the amygdala, which is kind of like the alarm system for our fight or flight response.
Okay.
So by practicing meditation, we can actually strengthen the prefrontal cortex's control over that emotional reaction.
Wow. So we're literally rewiring our brains to respond to financial situations with more calm and less panic.
Exactly.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Especially when you think about how fear can drive some pretty irrational financial decisions.
Absolutely. And that brings us to another concept the source talks about.
Okay.
Detachment.
Now that might sound a little counterintuitive
Yeah.
when we're talking about building wealth,
Right.
but it's not about rejecting money or material possession.
No.
Okay. So this detachment thing is throwing me off a little bit.
Okay.
How can we be detached and still work towards our financial goals?
That's a great question. And it's something that the source addresses directly.
Okay.
Detachment in this context is about breaking free from that constant feeling of needing more.
Okay.
That fear of losing what we have or the anxiety that comes with uncertainty.
Right.
It's about cultivating a sense of peace that doesn't depend on what's happening outside of us.
So it's not about giving up on our aspirations for financial security,
No.
but it's about shifting our mindset.
Yeah.
So we're not constantly being driven by those anxieties.
Exactly.
I can see how that would make a huge difference in how we approach money decisions.
Absolutely. And there's this story in the source about a man who finds this precious gem while he's meditating.
Okay.
And when he's asked how he found it, he says, "I stopped searching and allowed the world to reveal it to me."
Wow, I love that story.
What's a powerful metaphor
Yeah.
for how cultivating that inner peace and clarity can actually attract abundance into our lives.
It's like that saying, right? Stop looking for happiness and you'll find it.
Exactly.
But how does that apply to our finances?
Well, it's not about sitting on a cushion and just visualizing piles of money.
Right.
It's about using meditation to develop a more mindful and balanced approach to money,
Okay.
which can then open us up to new opportunities and help us make better decisions.
All right, I'm definitely starting to get it. So where do we even begin?
Well, the source outlines a few different meditation techniques that are designed to help us cultivate this financial wisdom.
Okay, I'm ready to explore those.
The first one is called meditation for clarity.
Mm-hmm.
And it really gets at those two big obstacles we were talking about before, fear and desire.
Fear and desire. Yeah, those are definitely two forces that have driven some of my not so great financial choices in the past.
Right. Well, in this meditation, the source has us visualize walking along a path.
Okay.
And on one side, there's this dark cloud representing fear.
Mm,
And on the other side, a raging fire symbolizing desire.
okay.
And as we're walking, we focus on staying right in the middle of that path.
Got it. So it's about finding that balance
Yeah.
between those two powerful forces.
Exactly. And the source suggests repeating affirmations like, I am clear, I see my path, I make wise choices.
Okay.
It's all about training our minds to stay focused,
Yeah.
even when we're tempted to stray.
This already feels so relevant to me. You know, that inner battle between wanting to indulge in the moment
Yes.
and knowing I should really be saving for the future.
Exactly.
This visualization seems like a great way to kind of navigate those feelings.
Yeah, it is. And it's just the beginning of a journey towards this greater financial wisdom.
Okay, I'm officially hooked. Tell me about the next one.
All right, so the next one the source talks about is called meditation for gratitude and abundance.
Okay.
And it really builds on that idea in Buddhism that gratitude is like the foundation of abundance.
Interesting. So by appreciating what we have, we're actually opening ourselves up to receiving more.
Exactly.
I've definitely heard about the power of gratitude,
Yeah.
but I'm curious how it actually works in this meditation.
So in this meditation, you bring to mind all the things you're grateful for.
Okay.
Your health, your loved ones, a roof over your head.
Right.
Even simple things, like a good cup of coffee.
Hmm.
As we reflect on those blessings, we imagine this warm light filling our hearts and radiating outward.
That sounds so soothing. Already I can feel my stress level going down just thinking about it.
Right.
But how does this tie back to abundance with finances?
Well, when we cultivate that sense of gratitude, we shift from a scarcity mindset,
Okay.
that feeling of never having enough,
Yeah.
to a mindset of sufficiency.
Okay.
The source talks about repeating affirmations like, thank you, I have enough, I'm open to more. It's about recognizing that we already have abundance in our lives,
Right.
and that creates space for even more to come in.
I'm starting to see how that shift in perspective could be really powerful.
Yeah.
Instead of constantly chasing after more, we're kind of cultivating this contentment with what we already have,
Yes.
which then paradoxically allows us to receive more. It's almost like breaking free from that constant feeling of lack,
Exactly.
which I think drives so many of our financial decisions.
Absolutely. And that leads us into the next technique.
Right.
Meditation for financial intention setting.
Okay.
It's about aligning our actions with our goals and creating a roadmap for our financial future.
So how do we actually set those intentions through meditation? Is it like visualizing winning the lottery or something?
No, not quite.
Yeah.
The source actually offers a more grounded approach.
Okay.
It guides us through this visualization where we imagine a blank canvas that represents our financial future.
Okay.
And we start painting that canvas with the life we want.
Okay.
Managing money wisely, achieving our financial goals, using our wealth in meaningful ways.
I love that imagery.
Yeah.
It's like we're taking control of our financial destiny
Exactly.
instead of just letting it happen to us.
Yeah.
But how do we actually bridge that gap between the visualization and making it happen in real life?
Well, that's where the power of intention comes in.
Yeah.
The source says we should repeat things like, I align my actions with my intentions. I create the life I desire.
Right.
By focusing our energy on what we want, we're essentially telling our subconscious minds to work towards those goals.
So it's like setting those internal GPS coordinates,
Yeah.
guiding us towards our desired financial destination.
Right.
It's not just wishful thinking. It's about actively shaping our reality.
That's it.
I like that.
Yeah.
Okay, this is starting to feel really empowering. Like we're taking back control instead of being ruled by fear or impulse.
Right.
I'm ready for the next technique. What else is there?
So the next one is called meditation for letting go of financial fears.
Oh, I think we can all relate to that one.
Yeah.
Fear can be such a powerful force when it comes to money.
Absolutely.
Whether it's fear of scarcity, fear of making the wrong investment, or even fear of success sometimes.
Yeah.
How does this meditation help us overcome those fears?
Well, the source uses this visualization where we picture our fear as a really heavy object.
Okay.
Maybe like a bag of stones or a weighted blanket or even a giant boulder on our shoulders.
I can already feel the tension just thinking about it.
Right.
But how do we actually let go of that weight?
Right.
It's not like we can just snap our fingers and make fear disappear.
It's not about suppressing those fears.
Right.
It's about acknowledging them,
Okay.
feeling them, and then gently releasing them. We imagine ourselves putting down that heavy object, watching it dissolve, and feeling this lightness wash over us.
That's such a beautiful visualization. It's like we're
Yeah.
choosing to let go of that grip of fear and open ourselves up to something more positive.
Exactly. And the source says we should use affirmations like, I release this fear. I trust in my ability to create abundance. It's about shifting from a mindset of fear to a mindset of trust.
I like that.
Yeah.
Trust in ourselves, trust in the universe.
Exactly.
Okay, I already feel a bit lighter just thinking about releasing that burden.
Good.
So we've talked about clarity, gratitude, intention, and releasing fear. Are there any other practices the source recommends?
Well, the source emphasizes the importance of bringing mindfulness into our daily lives.
Yep.
It's not just about formal meditation.
Right.
It's about bringing that awareness to every financial decision we make.
So it's about being more mindful in our everyday lives when we're actually interacting with money.
Yes. It's like
Yeah.
bringing that awareness to each financial decision.
It sounds like a subtle shift,
Mhm.
but it could be really powerful.
Yeah. The source encourages us to just pause for a second before making a purchase.
Okay.
You know, just asking ourselves, does this align with my values? Does this align with my intentions?
That's a really interesting point. I usually
Why?
just swipe my card without even thinking about it.
Yeah.
But taking a moment to pause and actually reflect,
Yes.
I could see that changing how I feel about money.
Absolutely. It's like transforming those everyday transactions into something more meaningful.
Yeah.
It's like living wisdom.
So bridging that gap between theory and practice.
Yes. Putting those teachings into action.
I think that's key to creating any kind of lasting change.
Absolutely. And the source reminds us this is a journey.
Right.
It's not a destination. We're
Yeah.
constantly refining our practice, making adjustments
Right.
and celebrating our progress.
So it's not about reaching some perfect state of financial enlightenment.
No.
It's more about embracing the process.
Yes. Learning and growing along the way.
That feels much more realistic.
Right. And the source also says that setbacks are going to happen.
Yeah.
Challenges are inevitable.
Right.
But when we encounter those obstacles, it's an opportunity to reflect,
Huh.
adjust our approach,
Right.
and recommit to our practice.
It's a different way of looking at things.
It is. Instead of seeing setbacks as failures,
Yeah.
we can see them as opportunities to learn.
And it takes the pressure off,
Yeah,
needing to be perfect all the time.
exactly. And in Buddhist philosophy, the journey itself is the destination. Each step we take, each challenge we overcome, it's all part of cultivating wisdom, compassion, and ultimately greater well-being.
This has been an incredible deep dive. It's clear that this is about so much more than just money.
It is.
It's about changing our relationship with money,
Yeah.
finding that inner peace,
Yes.
aligning our choices with what really matters to us.
Absolutely. And remember, true abundance comes from a place of inner peace, clarity, and gratitude.
Powerful stuff.
As we cultivate those qualities, everything else will start to fall into place.
So it's not about chasing wealth.
No,
It's about creating the conditions for abundance to flourish.
that's it.
I'm excited to start putting these practices into action and seeing how it changes things for me.
That's great.
This has been so insightful and inspiring.
I'm glad to hear that.
Until next time, everyone, may you discover that true wealth lies not in what you have, but in who you become.